For more on this, we are joined by FCI Dublin survivor Aimee Chavira and Courtney Hanson with the California Coalition for Women Prisoners. It is so good to see you both again. Aimee, I do want to start with you tonight. You were at Darrell Smith's trial. You allege abuse at his hands. How are you feeling after the mistrial?
I'm upset. I'm upset because I personally believe that the prosecutor didn't do a good of a job as he should have, because there is evidence. There's a lot of victims here. There's not one victim. And it's false when people do say, hey, you know, maybe it was for the monetary issue. No, this is false. All survivors we want him to be prosecuted. We want justice. We want the BOP to pay. We want justice for every victim and for this issue to stop. We're not going to stop fighting. This is just the beginning. So it's upsetting for what has happened, because you are putting victims through this over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Natasha, this is a big issue here. This is a huge issue.
Aimee, I want to pick up on something you just said, because we saw Darrell Smith's defense painting the women coming forward against him as women who were all incarcerated for felony offenses, looking for their golden opportunity, essentially seeing dollar signs and a potential windfall because of the large class action settlement. What is your response to that?
My response to this is that against the law for somebody to say, hey, you're going to receive a monetary settlement here or something? No, because the victims, as I speak as a victim, what we wanted was justice. What came from us, what came from me personally, was justice. Prison time. You committed a crime, pay for the crime that you have committed, not just by yourself, but with 7 other more hundreds of officers have done, and till this day are still doing. That's what we were asking for. That's what we're still asking for, and we're going to continue to ask for justice. That's our main priority here, is for justice to be served here. If I committed a crime and I have to pay for it, so do they.
Yeah.
But their badge and their shield kind of makes it hard for this to happen. But it shouldn't be like this. There should be even justice. The system should have an even justice pay here for everyone, for an equal, and that's not what we're seeing here.
I hear you, Aimee. And Courtney, I want to bring you in here. It's interesting. This jury was comprised of 10 men and 2 women. You closely monitored this trial. What insight can you give us into the jury selection specifically regarding women?
Yeah, thank you for asking this question. It's really important to note that the initial jury pool was pretty evenly split. During selection, potential jurors were asked whether they or someone that they're close to have ever experienced sexual assault. So this question effectively disqualified many women. And rather than recognizing this type of lived experience as a source of expertise and insight, the court treated it as bias, sidelining, in our opinion, those most capable of understanding the trauma at the very heart of this case.
Yeah, so only 2 females ended up on that jury, because the rest of them were disqualified for either experiencing sexual assault themselves or having a close loved one, family member, a person close to them who had experienced it. That's fascinating. Aimee, I want to ask you about this, because in the opening statement from Smith's defense, they made a point of saying there is the absence of physical or DNA evidence here. They're trying to insert doubt with the jury. It struck me that you say Dirty Dick Smith said something very specific to you that relates to this. Can you tell me what you remember?
There was a time when I went down to the officer station and Officer Smith was working. And as I went down there, I had told him, hey, one day you're going to pay. And he leaned back on the chair and put his feet up and said, you're a convicted felon. I'm a federal officer. Who do you think they're going to believe? You don't have a word that I can't use on air. But in other words, so the audience can understand me, it would mean ejaculate. So people can understand what I'm talking about is you don't have my physical evidence in your hands or on your clothing, so you can't, there's no way I'm going to get prosecuted. So this is what we're facing, Natasha. This is what we're arguing. The cover-up, the the cover up of the government, or him being protected, where we have, this is exactly what we're talking about, the evidence that is being hidden, or for him to know that this is what we've been talking about this whole time. He clearly told me. So if he's clearly telling me, and I'm telling you, before he's gone to trial, this is what he said, and this is what we're going through exactly right now.
And Courtney,
so he technically told me, you don't have my evidence, I'm not going to be charged.
Courtney, FCI Dublin was abruptly...
It's kind of frustrating.
I certainly, and I hear that, Aimee. Courtney, I want to ask you, this is very important. FCI Dublin was abruptly shut down last year. It was a move that U.S. District Court Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers called ill-conceived at the time. About 600 women scattered to a dozen-plus other facilities across the country. Has the abuse ended in these new facilities?
The abuse has not ended, and it's important to note that that abrupt shutdown of FCI Dublin happened as soon as our class action lawsuit against Dublin and the BOP required a special master to come in as totally independent oversight and monitor the crisis at the prison. So they shipped hundreds of people, as you said, all across the country, and we continue to have incredible movement attorneys go and visit these people, and we have confirmed reports ongoing sexual abuse perpetrated by staff at other federal women's prisons, on top of other forms of heinous retaliation, including extremely widespread use of solitary confinement, which is a form of torture and retaliation. And it's exactly what women faced at FCI Dublin when they reported abuse through official channels that they were told to report it through. So we are still seeing Dublin survivors held in extremely abusive situations and fighting for their release to come home where they belong and be able to heal in their communities.
It's enormously disturbing to hear that the retaliation and the abuse is continuing just in other facilities. And Courtney, one more question for you. We're seeing a lot of viewer comments and outrage pouring in. Several have suggested only female guards should be allowed. It stood out to me that the survivors I spoke with, including Aimee, say that the abuse also came from the female guards. Wendy Ponzo, who alleged the abuse at the hands of the prison chaplain, suggests that every correctional officer should be required to wear a working body camera at all times. I want to get your thoughts on this.
Sure, there are many types of reforms that, should have been implemented yesterday, but unfortunately across this country, when we have body cams, when we have more surveillance, we still see incidents of brutality right there on camera, unchecked, without accountability. So what our organization thinks, after 3 consistent decades of monitoring these types of issues like staff sexual abuse, they're really in the fabric of the incarceration system, of how we lock people up in this country. And I would ask the viewers who are feeling passionate about getting involved and doing something to really think about what's going to address the root of this problem that has existed for as long as the prison system itself has existed.
Yeah, Courtney, very quickly, we're almost out of time. Any reaction to NewsNation doing this investigation?
I think it's incredibly important. We're extremely grateful. I see all of the attention pouring in, that people are really fired up. And I think this issue hits close to home for so many people. And we got this far because ordinary people came together and said, enough is enough. We don't want to live in a society where this is normal. And the fact that NewsNation is covering it so rigorously is really needed. Thank you.
Aimee, Chavira, it was an honor to hear your story. Courtney, Hanson, I appreciate the work that you do. Thank you both. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.